From law and politics to our languages and buildings, the echoes of the Roman Empire are everywhere. But how did this tiny city-state on the Italian peninsula grow to dominate the known world for centuries? Let's dive into the epic story of Rome, from its mythical beginnings to its ultimate fall. Our story starts not with history, but with a legend. In the city of Alba Longa, twin boys were born to the god of war, Mars, and a priestess. Their great-uncle, fearing them as rivals, ordered them to be drowned. But fate intervened. The babies, Romulus and Remus, were found and nursed by a she-wolf, then raised by a shepherd. As young men, they decided to found their own city, but a bitter argument over its location led to a tragedy. Romulus killed Remus, and so Romulus became the first king of a new city, which he named Rome. To grow his population, he declared it an asylum, attracting a rough crowd of men from all over, but they needed wives. In a now infamous act, the Romans abducted young women from the neighboring Sabine people. Surprisingly, this violent beginning led to peace. Romulus and the Sabine king, Titus Tatius, agreed to rule together. This set a dangerous precedent. First, the Sabine king died in a riot. Then, one day, Romulus himself vanished during a storm. The myth says he ascended to the heavens as the god Quirinus. The reality, he was probably assassinated by his political rivals. This pattern of violent succession would haunt Rome for centuries. The second king, Numa Pompilius, was a man of peace. He gave Rome its 12-month calendar, the Order of the Vestal Virgins, and the office of high priest, the Pontifex Maximus. 5 more kings followed Numa. The last, known as Tarquin the Proud, was a tyrant who murdered his predecessor and was ultimately overthrown by his own people. In the 6th century BC, the monarchy was abolished and the Free Republic of Rome was born. But free was a relative term. Power was held by a small group of aristocratic families called the patricians. The common people, the plebeians, had virtually no say. For nearly 200 years, the plebeians protested, slowly winning concessions. They formed their own assembly, got their own dedicated officials called tribunes, and forced the government to write down the laws for all to see in the 12 tables. Eventually, wealthy plebeians gained the same rights as the patricians, but for the poor, little changed. The Republic was almost always at war, gradually conquering all of Italy. By 130 BCE, after a series of brutal wars with its great rivals, Carthage, Rome was the master of the Mediterranean, with territories in North Africa and Spain. A general named Marius reformed the army, creating professional soldiers who were paid for their service and loyal to their commanders, not the state. This was a game changer. Ambitious, wealthy men could now raise private armies. Corruption and greed routed the Republic from within. In 88 BC, the first of many civil wars erupted when the general Sulla marched his army on Rome itself, a shocking act. He eventually won and made himself dictator. Decades later, in 49 BC, another general prepared to do the same. Julius Caesar, the celebrated conqueror of Gaul, crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, defying the Senate and his former ally, Pompey. Civil war was on again. Pompey fled, but his fight was short-lived. He was assassinated in Egypt by the pharaoh's advisors, who hoped to curry favor with Caesar. It backfired. Caesar was disgusted. He then met the pharaoh's brilliant sister, Cleopatra. Their legendary affair began, and the pharaoh ended up dead. Back in Rome, Caesar was hailed as a hero. He was declared absolute ruler for 10 years. But Caesar wanted more. When he made himself dictator for life in 44 BC, he went too far. On the Ides of March, a group of senators, calling themselves the Liberators, stabbed him to death on the floor of the Senate House. They thought they were saving the Republic, but they only plunged it into more chaos. Another civil war broke out, this time between Caesar's loyal general Mark Antony, Antony's lover, Queen Cleopatra, and Caesar's young, adopted heir, Octavian. After a long and bloody struggle, Octavian was victorious. Antony and Cleopatra took their own lives, and Egypt, with its vast grain supplies, became a Roman province. The Republic was dead. The Roman Empire was about to begin. In 27 BC, the Senate granted Octavian the title Augustus, meaning the revered one. He was now the first Roman emperor. Augustus was clever. He maintained the illusion that the Republic still existed, but in reality, all power was in his hands. His 41-year reign was a golden age of peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. He built a network of roads, created a standing army and the elite Praetorian Guard, established police and fire services, and transformed Rome with brand new buildings. The empire expanded, but a devastating loss of 3 legions in Germania and 9 had halted any further push into that territory. When Augustus died, his stepson Tiberius took over. He was a capable but gloomy ruler who preferred to delegate power to the ambitious commander of the Praetorian Guard, Sejanus. Sejanus had Tiberius's own heirs murdered, which sent the emperor into a paranoid spiral of executions. In the end, Tiberius himself was likely murdered by his successor, Caligula. Caligula started out popular, but his reign quickly descended into madness. He declared himself a living god, executed rivals and family members, and was rumored to have had incestuous relationships with his sisters. After 4 years of his tyranny, the Praetorian Guard had had enough. They assassinated him and, in a surprising move, proclaimed his awkward, scholarly uncle, Claudius, as the new emperor. No one expected much from Claudius, who had physical disabilities and had always stayed out of the public eye. But he proved to be a surprisingly effective administrator. He oversaw the construction of new roads, aqueducts, and canals, and launched the successful conquest of Britain. But his end was tragic. He was likely poisoned by his own wife, Agrippina, to make way for her son, Nero. And now we come to one of Rome's most infamous emperors. We all know the story of Nero fiddling while Rome burned. While that's a myth, he did use the Great Fire of 64 AD as an excuse to persecute the new and troublesome sect of Christians. The massive rebuilding project also helped distract from the fact that his extravagant spending had bankrupted the empire. Nero was widely hated. Eventually, the army turned against him. The Senate declared him an enemy of the state, and he was forced to commit suicide. Nero left no heir, plunging Rome into the year of the 4 emperors. A general named Vespasian finally emerged as the victor. Vespasian was a down-to-earth soldier who restored the state's finances and began construction on one of the most iconic buildings in the world, the Colosseum. Much of it was funded by treasures looted from the temple in Jerusalem after his son, Titus, crushed a Jewish revolt there. Titus ruled for only 2 years before his brother Domitian took the throne. Domitian was an effective but autocratic ruler who was eventually murdered by his own court officials. This ushered in a period of remarkable stability in the 2nd century AD. The era of the 5 good emperors. These rulers, like the military genius Trajan and the philosopher King Marcus Aurelius, were chosen for their ability, not their bloodline. The empire reached its greatest extent under Trajan, stretching from Scotland to the Caspian Sea. Hadrian built his famous wall in Britain to keep out the northern tribes. But this golden age ended with Marcus Aurelius' son, Commodus. He was an egomaniac who thought he was a gladiator. His reign was a disaster, and he was eventually strangled by his wrestling trainer. Commodus' death kicked off a century of chaos known as the Imperial Crisis. For 50 years, emperors rose and fell with shocking regularity, almost all meeting violent ends. Stability finally returned into AD 4 AD with Diocletian. He realized the empire was too vast for one man to rule, so he split it into a Greek-speaking East and a Latin-speaking West. He created a system of 4 rulers, the Tetrarchy, which brought peace for a time. But Diocletian also launched the last and most severe persecution of Christians. This backfired, only making Christianity stronger. After Diocletian abdicated, a power struggle ensued. The victor was a general named Constantine. Constantine claimed he saw a vision of a Christian symbol before a crucial battle and credited his victory to the Christian god. As Emperor of the West, he legalized Christianity. He then defeated his eastern counterpart and reunited the empire under his sole rule. Constantine made Christianity the favored religion of the empire. He moved the capital from Rome to the ancient city of Byzantium, which he rebuilt into a magnificent new city, Constantinople. Perfectly positioned between Europe and Asia, it became the new center of the empire. After Constantine's death, the empire was eventually split again. The Western Roman Empire, weakened by internal decay and battered by waves of barbarian invasions, finally collapsed in 476 AD when its last emperor was deposed. But the story doesn't end there. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call the Byzantine Empire, thrived for another 1,000 years, preserving Roman law, culture, and knowledge. It finally fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. After more than 2 millennia, the incredible saga of Rome had come to an end. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through Roman history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the past. See you next time.